Over the last few years, I've talked at length about the benefit of sending your cryptocurrency from an exchange to a cold storage wallet. Recently, Ledger have come out with this new product called Ledger Recover. And this product, this Ledger Recover, has caused massive drama in the crypto world and is causing a lot of panic. And I'm seeing all over Twitter and all over social media of people leaving their cold storage wallets to go to competitor cold storage wallets who haven't sacrificed on this major mission that is to secure people's crypto assets. This Ledger Recover product that they're offering on the surface appears to do the opposite of what we've been telling people to do, or at least the perception of what we thought the company was trying to do seems to not be being done with this new offering. So we're going to get into what Ledger Recover is and what it isn't. We're going to get into whether I think Ledger should or shouldn't have done this. We're going to talk about the side effects that this news has had on the whole market, some negatives and some positives. We're going to look at some alternatives away from Ledger if that is your decision. Then we're going to get into my honest thoughts and what I'm planning to do right at the end of the video. Cold storage wallets are an entry-level thing that beginners have to start to understand in order to secure assets. So regardless of whether cold storage wallets are still the play or they're not the play, you still have to understand how they work. And this is one of the topics I'll be covering in my absolutely free beginners crypto program. Now I urge you, if you are a beginner, this is going to be the best free program that you will have seen online. But also, if you're not a beginner, it may have some merit if you're not a beginner, because then it might refresh you up on the basics. But really it is targeted at beginner entry-level crypto individuals. So don't worry about it if you are an expert or you know quite a bit even about the XRP Ledger and all that kind of detailed stuff. It's probably not the place for you. But if you are interested in learning more and understanding as much as you possibly can in the shortest amount of time, then the link is in the description. You just have to register on the form when the course comes out. I'll email everyone and you can have at it. But let's get into Ledger Recover. So what is it and why was it created? So essentially Ledger Recover has teamed up with CoinCover to offer this different cloud-based security system. And it all revolves around this secret recovery phrase that we hold very close to ourselves. Like we don't reveal that to anyone. And this really gets into the big issue of all of this. The one thing that we learn in our journey in crypto is never give away your secret phrases. Like never do that. Never enter that anywhere online. Never tell anyone that. If you make copies of it on a piece of paper, store it away, put it in a safe, put it in multiple locations. Make sure no one sees this because that is the only way to access the funds or the crypto or more specifically, the keys to the crypto. Ledger Recover is a solution for people who lose or don't want to keep track of their secret phrases. Let's think critically about this. Who has the phrases then? Like if that's not in my self-custody, who has that? And obviously the answer here is that Ledger or CoinCover in this situation actually has your passphrases. So essentially what you're doing is giving access to your crypto or to the keys to the crypto to a third-party entity. And so if your whole mission here is to have self-custody completely through and through self-custody, then this is going to start alarm bells in your head. And this is exactly what has happened. So I want to tell you what this is and what it isn't, first of all. So Ledger Recovery is only available for Ledger Nano X people. So people who own the Ledger Nano X, it's only for them. And in addition, what it is not is mandatory. It's completely optional. So essentially, however you want to handle this, if you really truly do not like having to think about where all of your seed phrases are, the secret recovery phrases and all of that stuff, then this solution might actually be of benefit to you only if that's what you want and you have a Ledger Nano X. If you have an S, you can't do it. If you have a Stacks, you can't do it. Only the Nano X. And I think it's really important to look at the optional part. You won't ever go into your Ledger Live app and it requests an update, and with that update you've now given your secret phrases. You have to opt in for it. So the only way to access this service is to opt in. It's completely optional. So on one hand, I'm like, everyone relax, okay? This is not that important. You can keep it the way it was. It can be as secure as it was before. But the issue here is Ledger's move to do such a thing. And I think this is where people are having the real problem and where people are disenfranchising themselves with Ledger and looking elsewhere. Because if Ledger's whole purpose is to give you the custody of your assets and that secret phrase never leaves the device itself or the knowledge of you, the individual, and that is the whole premise, the whole mission of the business, it seems really strange to now divvy up that secret phrase and give it to third-party entities. And I know that this third-party entity, it's a custody solution, like a legit company that does these things, and they shard the passphrases, so you need all 3 shards, put them together, and then you can access it. So even though people are going crazy about this, like, oh, I'm never giving my secret phrases to these other people, it is very secure. I mean, they wouldn't have done it in the first place if it wasn't very secure. When we give the custody of our assets to a bank, for example, to get an interest yield, it's the same thing. I mean, you're giving your assets to them, they hold them, they shard the passphrases into, I actually thought it was 10 to 12 shards instead of just the 3 that CoinCover is doing. It's the same principle. It's just interesting how we have varying levels of trust based on the mission of the entity that we're entrusting. Like, should Ledger have even considered this as an option? Well, let's look at the side of them considering it and then actually doing it. Why might they have done that? Well, they could probably be acknowledging, much like I am with my business, that there's going to be a lot of new beginners coming into the space. And these beginners oftentimes have that learning curve that we've all experienced because we've been here for a while. We had to learn how to use the cold storage wallet, learn that actually you are only accessing the key to the crypto, which is on the blockchain. Like, beginners don't understand this, and is actually, if you look at it as an obstacle in the learning this, they could just bypass all of that and continue their learning elsewhere in more effective ways. So I can see that Ledger, just as I'm thinking about the beginners. They've made this move and they've committed to it, but I think they haven't thought about fully how this would actually impact the public view of their mission and who they are as a company. As a company that everyone trusts to secure their crypto, or at least provide ourselves custody of our own crypto, to open up the opportunity for APIs to link in to your Ledger Nano X, just seems like an unnecessary vulnerability. So there may have been other features that they could have added or other products they could have added that actually would have met the requirements of their current audience base. But I also kind of feel for Ledger as well, because it's difficult when you've got an audience or a customer base for one specific thing and you're trying to create a product that's designed for a different type of person. That obviously in that transition, it's going to create some turmoil, it's going to create some drama. But ultimately, in reality, what they might be doing is just creating less obstacles along the journey for the new wave of beginners that are going to come in when the prices start going up. I mean, these are just I'm trying to be level-headed and reasonable about all of this. And I typically take a little bit longer to respond to these like news events that happen, because I like to see how things play out and I like to think about them without emotion. This is one thing that I would talk about a lot on this channel, and I will talk about in depth in that free program that I'm going to put out. It's just about understanding yourself and controlling your own emotions. For me, sometimes taking a little bit of time to delay my response to certain news is what I need to think with clarity. And so I would just urge everyone to, whenever they hear news, regardless of what it is, let things play out for a day, at least like 12 hours. See how you really feel about it. Think level-headedly, and then proceed to make decisions based on that feeling, not the emotional up and down. That's just what works for me. You know, something else might work for you. You might make tremendous decisions when you're emotional, but I'm just saying that from my experience, that doesn't really work. So what are the side effects of all of this? I think that people are going to be leaving Ledger. I think that emotional behavior is going to be rife. I think everyone's going to be leaving. I think ultimately what will happen is people will leave. They'll truly realize that it's optional and actually they quite liked using their Ledger Live, and they'll go back. Whenever these big fear-mongering stories come out, whether they're true or not, it doesn't really matter. People react a certain way, and in that reaction, we get market movements. Usually we see these types of things, the fear in the thing we thought was most secure, like these types of narratives. Usually we see these things nearer the bottom, okay? So it's my thought process that we are in fact going to come back down to the 36-cent level, which is where I have all of my personal buy orders for the last chunk of XRP that I'm going to buy. I'll also enter my XLM and XDC at that moment, or re-enter, should I say. But, you know, I look at this piece of news as potentially, what if this piece of news, or the news that surrounds this piece of news about cold storage wallets not being secure, is what takes it down to that 36-cent level? And from that point, you know, the faith is restored, people truly understand that it's optional, and they don't opt in or they do opt in, doesn't matter. And then we move on to the next piece of news. I think that's just how we handle this. But if you are adamant that you're upset about Ledger now opening up these potential access points into your crypto, then you may want to consider some other options. Now, there is an option that's separate to cold storage and is separate to an exchange. And as time goes on, this becomes more and more appealing, especially as I look towards the exit points for this market based on the strategy that I've put together. Again, I will go into how to create your own strategy by yourself and a formulaic approach in my free course, so make sure you're registering for that. The link is in a description. When it comes to selling, the most crucial moment of selling, what happens when you can't sell? What happens if the exchange says, we don't have the liquidity, or we're not accepting withdrawals of funds right now? What happens when that happens? You miss your sell points, your plan goes out the window. I'm not saying that will happen, but it is a possibility when you have crypto on an exchange. So if you're not considering a Ledger as cold storage wallet, perhaps this other option that I'm going to bring you now is of interest, and it's through a brokerage called Caleb and Brown. I've found each individual that I've interacted with at Caleb and Brown to be absolutely wonderful, amazing at communication. And I will say, as of this video, there is no agreement between me and Caleb and Brown, although we are speaking about how I can kind of incorporate Caleb and Brown's offering into this audience and into the content, which I think is extremely valuable. But what they allow is the opportunity to basically call someone up. You get on the phone with an individual and you can ask them to sell, buy, transfer, whatever you want them to do. You can do that on the phone with somebody. And the certainty of that trade being executed is significantly higher than you would find on an exchange. They do have a higher fee, but all of the rich people, all of the millionaires that I've talked to over the last kind of 6 months, they are all using Caleb and Brown. One reason, and it's certainty of transaction. They don't care about the fee. They're happy to pay for the fee and the reduced slippage that you would get on an exchange. And what slippage means is if you put in a trade on an exchange, but the price fluctuates within that time, the exchanges have a higher slippage percentage of how much that price can slip. And whatever the price is when the transaction finally meets the point where it has to start going through, that might be up to like 7% difference in the price. And you had no choice in the matter. But there's reduced slippage with Caleb and Brown, and the custody of the assets within Caleb and Brown is actually given out to a custody asset holding company. They specialize in custody. And this is a top of the line offering for serious investors. If you're disenfranchised with cold storage wallets, I would look to Caleb and Brown. If you're disenfranchised with the whole idea of giving custody of your assets to another entity, I would just not opt in for the Ledger thing and stay on the Ledger. If you're disenfranchised with exchanges, I would look at the Ledger or Caleb and Brown. But when I think about it personally, when I'm looking to that big sell-off moment for my assets, not my XRP though, when I look towards that selling moment, that euphoric moment where we actually take some profits in whatever tokens you're taking profit in according to your plan, the one thing that keeps coming back in my mind is that I want the certainty of that transaction to be a thing. Like, I need that transaction to go through. And when I weigh up kind of a larger fee for Caleb and Brown in order to execute that accurately, like I'm going to do that. And so very shortly, as in the next couple of weeks, I will be allocating funds deliberately and specifically into Caleb and Brown, test out the service. I'll communicate all of that with you. But it would be interesting in the comments, if you have worked with Caleb and Brown before, to leave your honest thoughts in the comments. So anyone who's considering it, they can also go into the comments and have a look to see what other people think. And then the link is in my description if you want to make contact with him. And it would obviously support me later down the line when we've got something worked out with Caleb and Brown if you said that I had sent you when you go there. Make sure that you watch the next video that the algorithm thinks is perfect for you. So click the video below me here. Don't leave the video without clicking subscribe if you got value today. Also click like on your way out. And as always, regardless of the news, stay emotionless, and I'll see you in the next one.